With record-breaking heat waves, wildfires, a global pandemic, floods, hurricanes, and ice caps melting, it's easy to get caught up in the wave of doom porn surrounding climate change. But what does the science say? According to Michael E. Mann, one of the most respected climate scientists on the planet, if the science objectively demonstrated it was too late to limit warming below catastrophic levels, that would be one thing, and we scientists would be faithful to that. But the science doesn't say that. Today, we are headed to 3 degrees Celsius warming by 2100, which is bad, but just 1 decade ago, we were on track for 5 degrees Celsius of warming, which would have been apocalyptic. Just 15 years ago, we were still debating whether climate change was real or not because of all the misinformation put out by the fossil fuel industry. So while you should feel urgent about climate change, you should not feel hopeless. Because if the last 10 years should teach us anything, it is that we can change. So, why have emissions dropped? Most of it came from increased efficiency, falling prices in renewable energy, and cuts in the use of coal. The drops occurred in some of the largest CO2 emitting countries like the United States, Japan, and the UK. In high-income countries, the average fall was about 18%, but the UK saw an almost 45% drop. This happened without aggressive climate policies and with economic growth. So here are 6 reasons why we can solve climate change. Number 1, laws are changing. In 2015, the world signed the Paris Climate Agreement, agreeing to cut emissions by 55% by 2030 and by 100% by 2050. In 2022, the U.S. passed the Inflation Reduction Act, which allocates $369 billion in tax credits towards cutting emissions, which alone could get the country to a 40% reduction by 2030. In December 2022, world governments signed the Global Biodiversity Framework, which protects a third of the planet's wilderness by 2030. In 2023, 200 countries passed the High Seas Treaty that puts 30% of the oceans into protected areas by 2030. All of these agreements will help to mitigate climate change. Number 2, the cost of renewable energy has fallen dramatically. The price of solar and batteries have dropped by 90% and wind by 66%, making them cheaper than fossil fuels as of 2020. Today, nearly 40% of global electricity is powered by renewables and nuclear energy. In 2022, solar was the fastest growing source of electricity for the 18th year in a row, rising by 24%, while wind rose by 17%. A study by UK think tank Carbon Tracker says that wind and solar can produce 100 times the energy we need to power the planet. We just need to harness it. In his book, No Miracles Needed, Stanford professor Mark Jacobson details how we could replace 80% of fossil fuels with renewable energy by 2030. And it would save us $6,000 per household per year in electricity and healthcare costs, while saving 5 million lives per year from pollution. The cost? Just 2.5% of annual global GDP until 2050, or about $2.2 trillion per year. But the plan would pay for itself in just 6 years from savings from healthcare and electricity costs. Number 3, we have hit peak vehicle. This means that vehicle sales are unlikely to surpass the 97 million that were sold in 2017, and they are already dropping. This is because of ride-hailing apps like Uber and Lyft. The Chinese are buying less cars, better public transportation, and Cities like London, New York, and San Francisco have closed some streets to traffic and are putting in bike lanes. Number 4, society is changing. People in wealthy countries are eating less meat and dairy. A 2021 survey shows that more than 47% of Americans are flexitarians. Almost 1/3 of Europeans are eating less meat, and by 2025, 25% of the UK population will be vegan or vegetarian. One study says that it takes 25% of a population for a social movement to become a new social norm. A 2021 survey from the Pew Research Center shows that 80% of people are willing to make changes in their lives to reduce the effects of global climate change, which means we are already well past this tipping point. And it's not just consumers, businesses are also changing. In 2023, there are 6,400 certified B corporations in 77 countries and 158 industries. These include well-known brands like Ben & Jerry's ice cream, Patagonia clothing, and Stonyfield yogurt. The philosophy behind B corporations is that they are to be used as a force for good, not just to increase shareholder value. Entrepreneurs are also creating new technologies that captures carbon dioxide from the atmosphere and stores it permanently. For example, Brilliant Planet uses algae to sequester CO2 from the ocean. High Hopes uses balloons to extract frozen CO2 high in the atmosphere where it's easy to capture. Both companies are operational and estimate that in the future they will be able to remove 3 to 5 gigatons each year, or about 20% of global CO2 emissions. Exponential technology will also speed up the development of these technologies. It has already led to more efficient solar panels and better wind turbines. Like glass film solar panels from Heliotech and Ubiquitous Energy that can turn skyscrapers into solar farms. And the quiet, aerodynamic vertical wind turbine from Aeromine that can be put on top of buildings and works with little wind. In the future, it could lead to carbon-neutral jet fuel, carbon-neutral concrete, and growable mycelium buildings. Number 5, divestment from the fossil fuel industry. Money is fleeing fossil fuels. In 2012, Unity College became the first to divest its endowment from the industry. By October 2021, 1,485 institutions totaling $39.2 trillion in assets divested from fossil fuels, making it the fastest divestment movement in history. Some of this is going into the record amounts of capital being invested into 3,000 climate tech startups between 2020 to 2021. Number 6, there is a small but growing movement of wealthy people who are asking to be taxed more. In 2022, 100 millionaires and billionaires signed an open letter asking to be taxed more and presented it to the World Economic Forum in Davos. They also presented an Oxfam report called Taxing Extreme Wealth that gives us an idea where the money to solve climate change could come from. A wealth tax starting at 2% per year for those who have over 5 million, 3% for those with more than 50 million, and 5% for billionaires would generate $2.52 trillion a year. This would be enough to pay for all of Mark Jacobson's plan to completely transition the world from fossil fuels to renewable energy and leave $300 billion for pizza, beer, and cake to celebrate. There are several organizations, including the Patriotic Millionaires, Millionaires for Humanity, and Tax Me Now, that are asking for government to tax them more. So, what are we waiting for? Climate change is big and complex, but by working together, we can solve it. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Please visit me at www.palmeroyoung.me for more videos, articles, and infographics.